If you're someone who follows a gluten-free diet, or you know anyone who follows a gluten-free diet, then this is good information for them. So if you are someone with celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disease affecting approximately 1 to 2% of the population, you have absolutely no choice but to avoid gluten. Similarly, if you have non-celiac gluten sensitivity, also known as gluten sensitivity, which affects anywhere from 6 to 8%-ish of the population. Again, you have no choice but to follow a gluten-free diet, if you want to retain your health, that is. Similarly, if you have a wheat allergy, now that's just avoiding wheat, but that's a very low percentage. It's about 0.1% of the population has a true wheat allergy. But any of these individuals have to avoid gluten, or in that latter case, wheat. I have been in this field for a very long time. My husband and I wrote the book, The Gluten Effect, back in 2009. It was published. I joked, and it wasn't a joke, but that it took me 10 years to write the book, because I thought about it for 6 or 7, and then it was my first book, so it took me a while to write it. But so we've been in this area for quite some time, speaking about gluten sensitivity when there really was no discussion about it, or very, very little discussion, other than in the research world. And the research world tends to precede common medical knowledge by at least a decade. And so in that world, people were looking into it, but I spoke at celiac societies and talked to individuals that ran them, and they had no clue that there was such a thing as anything but celiac disease or a wheat allergy. So the whole gluten sensitivity spectrum was unknown. One of the problems that I wanted to talk about today is a new study that just came out end of December 2024. So a very new study that looked at 39 gluten-free foods along with their gluten-containing counterparts. So they looked at foods like crackers and breads and things that were similar other than being gluten-free. And what they found was that the gluten-free variety had very low fiber, it had lower protein, much higher sugar, and the cost, of course, was higher as well. But it was the high sugar, low protein, low fiber, and even essential nutrients were diminished. So this is the area of what I call gluten-free junk food. And over the years working with patients, first I should say that many of our really miracle success stories involve discovering that somebody is gluten sensitive or has celiac disease and they didn't know it. And part and parcel of them having a miraculous success is discovering this and then avoiding gluten and seeing radical changes. Now, that's not the only thing we do, but that was a mainstay in part of the problem that was causing them a variety of health issues. So I'm not in any way trying to denigrate the importance of discovering if gluten is not your friend, because that's not a fad. As was going around for a little bit, it's a very real problem, and you absolutely deserve to know if it's a problem for you so you can take appropriate measures. Now, it's what you do once you find out you can't eat gluten. That's where we can run into some problems. Over the years, I remember one woman in particular, I think she was in her late 40s, early 50s, and she says, I'm gaining weight, and she said, I bought gluten-free cupcakes the other day. She says, I can't remember the last time I ate a cupcake. She goes, why did I do that? Just because it said gluten-free. And she spotted it for herself, that this was an abnormal activity for her, but she was so focused on just those 2 words, gluten and free, that she started eating things that normally she never would have. And so it's definitely a conversation we have with our patients that, this is not the time to go into the junk food world just because it doesn't have any gluten. We want real food. And one of the other exercises I used to do with patients when they found out they were sensitive to gluten was to say, okay, you feel like you're in mourning right now, and I understand, but let's look at everything you can eat. Every fruit, every vegetable, every nut, every lean protein, every fish, and they're finally like, okay, I get it. It's like, good. So there's a lot still you can eat. And these are pure foods that are healthy for us, right? All we're trying to do is avoid gluten and at the same time avoid gluten-free junk food. So these are the crackers and the cookies and the cakes and the donuts and the things that wouldn't be recommended even if you were not trying to avoid gluten. So even the gluten-containing donut, we don't want you to eat. So of course we don't want you to eat the gluten-free variety either. And I think that's the simplicity that we need to focus on, because the gluten-free market has really increased very dramatically. And while I'm happy for those manufacturers, their products are not the best, and the high sugar content in particular, along with the low fiber content, is really exacerbating gut issues, leaky gut issues, which go along with the person who has celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. This is what we're trying to solve. So A, make the diagnosis, great. B, eliminate gluten, great. C, heal the gut and heal the immune system, and anything else you find along the way as far as balancing hormones, et cetera, et cetera. But you can't do that if you're eating high sugar containing, low fiber, high refined carbohydrate foods. It's not going to happen, so it's going to get in the way. So this is something that I wanted to share, because over the years, and by the way, you can go to our website, which is rootcausemedicalclinics.com, and I have a plethora of recipes that I created over the years. And so this is the big 4, if you will, that I really want you to avoid. And you'll see these pre-made foods, and they start with rice flour, potato starch flour, tapioca flour, and then what was the 4th one? Cornstarch. Yeah, cornstarch. So that's the 4. And so if those are on the list, and they're usually right at the top, just go, no, that's not for me, because it's very refined, very high in simple carbs. It's going to be high in sugar, and it's going to create inflammation. And again, that's what we're trying to handle in these individuals, is diminish their inflammation. So just put those to the side, get creative, look at some recipes. I love almond flour or almond meal, coconut flour. There are things with quinoa or amaranth. What else did I have on my list? Oh, black beans. I used to make a brownie with black beans, and there was no flour at all in it, and nobody ever knew. So there's a lot of creative recipes out there where you can eschew, you can ignore, avoid these refined flours that I just mentioned, because they're not doing you any good at all. What else did I want to talk to you about? That was it. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you, again, know anybody who's got to be gluten-free, then this is something they need to know. My children are all gluten-free. They're older now, but we've known about their gluten sensitivity for a very long time. And I used to bring the desserts to the birthday parties so they could have their brownies or their cookies that were healthfully made. And then it got to be, and then the other kids liked that better. So moms had me bring it for the birthday party instead of, the pre-made cake. So it got to be a kind of a little joke that I would just bring all the gluten-free, healthy gluten-free treats, because there's so much you can do out there. And now monk fruit is available as a sweetener, and there's date syrup. There's so many varieties. So yeah, you have to play in the kitchen a bit, but that can be fun. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And subscribe to the channel, please, if you enjoy it, because we're really trying to increase our subscribers so that more people can see this information. Okay, we'll talk soon.